All right, did you want to get started now?
Yes, please, Grace. It will be my pleasure.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. Welcome to the YOUNGO Oceans Voice Working Group Special Youth Day webinar. Thanks everyone for being here today. We have an amazing group of panelists lined up to speak about all the incredible work that they're doing in their communities. But before we begin, I just wanted to introduce the Oceans Voice Working Group a little bit, and then myself, and then go over some logistics to make the rest of the event run smoothly. So the webinar today is being put on by the YOUNGO Oceans Voice Working Group. Oceans Voice is a group of young people from different regions all across the world who are working together to educate and achieve success in global ocean conservation initiatives. The group is separated into 4 regions: America/Caribbean, Asia Pacific, Africa/Gulf of Guinea, and Europe/Mediterranean. These regions are specific to the locations of Oceans Voice members, and each region will work on addressing a specific issue that is prominent in their area. Our goal as a working group is to remind everyone that we are the voice of the ocean, and it is important for all of us to stand up and take action to protect our blue planet. Alongside the various regions of the working group, we also have regional coordinators and a directive board. Our regional coordinators from Europe/Mediterranean region is Rosanna Bayamo and Eugénia Barroca. From the region Africa/Gulf of Guinea, Solomon Gay and Ibeke Ephraim, and I apologize if I pronounce any names incorrectly. From the region America/Caribbean, Hector Barranco Sabino and Sual Aldad Soto, and last but not least from the region Asia Pacific, Brenda Rai, and they work with their specific regional group, as you can see in this slide, as well as a directive board to thoroughly organize and plan out what issues their region will be tackling and how. As you can see now in this slide, the directive board, which consists of a president, treasurer, secretary, and 3 vowels, works to organize the working group as a whole and serves as the primary communicators between the regional groups, the working group, and the larger organization of YOUNGO, as well as the working group advisors. So as you can see here, we have 2 advisors, Hector Alafita, a technical and legal advisor, and Patricia Furtado, our strategic communication advisor. Each role within the directive board does a different task, with the president overseeing the board, the treasurer and secretary directly assisting the president, and the 2 vowels working to foster communication with the working group and recruit new members. Currently, the Oceans Voice Working Group is working on addressing Mar Menor, a saltwater lagoon off the coast of Spain that is full of pollution, chemicals, and trash. It is a prime example of what will happen to our ocean as a whole if we do not make drastic changes. We chose to focus on Mar Menor due to its extreme pollution, as well as the fact that it is connected to the rest of the ocean. Environmental issues and pollution do not know borders, and what happens in Mar Menor can and will easily impact the rest of the world. Another reason we decided to work for Mar Menor now is that we know there are already a lot of very good projects around the world fighting against plastic pollution. So we decided to highlight a less known problem, which generates huge impacts to marine ecosystems as well: the pollution caused by nutrients that come from an unsustainable agricultural production close to its waters. Luciana Verástegui will give us some details of this project. My name is Grace Doleshel, and I will be the Masters of Ceremony for the event today. Currently, I serve as a vowel on the board of directors for the YOUNGO International Oceans Working Group, and also work with a few different conservation organizations in my home country of the United States of America. I'm a university student finishing up my degree in environmental public policy. I am extremely passionate about environmental justice issues and how systems of oppression and global power structures play into environmental issues and their impact on humanity. In my spare time, I also work in emergency medicine. This work has led me to be very passionate and interested in human health and how climate change impacts humans. Aside from my work, I love taking care of my plants and animals. Currently, I have a pet snake, tarantula, 2 geckos, an axolotl, a hamster, a cat, and 3 fish tanks that I care for. I'm so excited to be here with you all today and hear from our incredible panelists. I started working in environmental activism when I was 14 years old, And through this time, I have learned so much about the important role that young people play in making equitable environmental policy a possibility all around the world. This working group, the group of panelists, and everyone tuning in today are so important to me, as you are all helping to unite the youth across the world for a common mission of protecting our planet. Before we begin, please be sure you keep your microphone on mute. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will work to answer them accordingly. Now I'm proud to introduce our panelists. First, let me introduce Ana Hanhausen from Mexico. Ana holds a chemical engineering degree from Mexico City's Iberoamerica University. Since 2018, she has collaborated with Plastic Oceans Mexico, a brand of an international organization that works to fight plastic pollution through legislation, education, and special events. She also collaborates with the POP Ocean Initiative to amplify advocacy for sustainable protection of marine ecosystems. She has participated both as a speaker and organizer for events aimed to raise awareness on the most important environmental issues of today. Aspiring to inspire people of all ages on taking individual action in order to reduce their footprint, Ana has recently bestowed by Mexico City's Congress with a Medal of Merit for her record in fostering climate change awareness and instilling the idea that individual commitment to action is a powerful force for change. Welcome, Ana. You now have the floor.
Thank you very much, Grace, for the great introduction to Ocean's Voice and for giving me the word. So for right now, being the first speaker, I would like to address how youth activism has changed throughout the last years, and especially how this activism has changed regarding the ocean. So I think every time it's become more clearly that the youth have become more involved in environmental issues. We start getting worried about what's happening around us, and we decide to make something to change what's going on. This has changed. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry. So this involvement of the youth has definitely changed the role we play in future decisions. So now that we have become an active part of it, the decisions are now taking into account more the youth's voice, because we have started demanding changes, because whatever happens will affect our future. And I think something that has happened recently and that is very important is that once the youth have become a really important part of the conversation, language and action have become way more inclusive. We have the youth across the world have reached out and included marginalized communities as well as indigenous communities, and they have taken into account their points of views and their concerns when finding solutions, which I think is really important. Another subject that is really important now that the youth are getting more involved in activism is climate justice, because we're not just worried about what will affect us. We're becoming more and more aware of what's happening across the world, and we understand that just because something doesn't affect us, it doesn't mean that we don't have to address it, right? So, for example, a great example here is Mar Menor. The project that Ocean's Voice is working with is a saltwater lagoon in Spain, and not all Ocean's Voice has people from all across the world, but everyone is concerned about this project because it affects us all. So I think that's a key part that the youth plays when talking about activism. Recently, I've had the chance to participate in other conferences and panels and everything, and I've realized that every time there's even younger people taking the lead. I've had the chance to talk to people who are 12 or 14, and they're innovating and having these amazing ideas regarding how to save the ocean. A really good example is Hasik Kasi. He's a guy from India who's 14 years old, and since he's 12, he started his own organization for picking up plastic in the ocean, which I think is amazing. Like I think of myself when I was 12 years old or 14 years old, and I can't think of myself doing that at that age. And I also think it's important that they're taking into account innovation. They're not just using the usual solutions. They're not just focusing on what's going on. They're focusing on what are the solutions and how can these solutions be inclusive and how can they be effective. So I think another thing that's really important is that I was just listening to a course by Jane Goodall, and she talks about the youth, not only in years, but the youth by heart, who are those who are still interested in learning. So I think one of the key definitions of the youth is that we are still eager to keep learning what's going on. So now focusing all these ideas of how activism and the youth has changed, focusing them on the ocean, I think as everyone has become more aware of the interconnectedness of the ocean and all the human beings in the planet, we've become more concerned in taking care of it. So for example, you've probably heard that 70% of the oxygen we breathe is produced in the ocean, or that 80% of the plastic pollution in the ocean comes from land-based sources. So that's when you realize, not because I live far away from the coast means I can step away from this issue. So I think that's something very important when talking about activism and the youth. I also think I've also seen a lot of growth in the youth who are participating and increased interest in joining these issues. And not only year by year, but month by month. In this past 5 months of quarantine, every time I join a webinar, there's even more youth interested and willing to learn more and to keep building up on the knowledge they've acquired. Finally, I was asked to talk a little about what motivates me. And I'd like to say that something that motivates me greatly is collective action. I think because sometimes we're acting alone and we wonder how our actions truly affect what's going on. But once you join bigger groups and you realize what everyone else is doing and how this is being done across the world, it becomes way more motivating. And another thing I think that is really important is that we're starting to see changes that we didn't think were possible. So, for example, more legislation is being done. The voice of the youth is being heard. There's really a change in the consciousness of the people and in their consuming patterns and everything. So I think that's when you realize it's worth it, right? Sometimes when you're doing activism or you're protesting or you're posting stuff on social media, you think like, how far is this going to reach? But once you see that true big changes made by decision makers are being made, it becomes way more motivating. So another thing that motivates me to act on the ocean specifically are all these facts that I mentioned before, as well as the biodiversity the ocean harvests, and that only 10% of the ocean is known. So there's so much more to explore, and I'm sure as years go by, we'll keep finding more and more discoveries of things we never thought possible that happen in our own planet. And finally, I would like to say I focus on the ocean mainly because I think it's the most silent victim of our actions. Because many people, since we don't see the effects of climate change on the ocean so clearly as we see them, for example, on land, sometimes they go unnoticed. So this happened to me when I was watching Chasing Coral like 3 years back. And I realized that this issue of coral bleaching was so big and everything that was happening. And that's when I realized that I had to start doing something about the oceans, because the effects of climate change on them cannot keep going unnoticed. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Now let me introduce you to Eugénia Barroca. Eugénia completed her degree in marine biology at the University of Algarve with a final project based on the abundance of marine debris on 3 Portuguese beaches. Over the past 10 years, Eugénia has played an active role in several environmental national and international organizations. Eugénia was a Portuguese delegate at the first Youth Advisory Council of the World Oceans Day from 2016 to 2018. And professionally, Eugénia is a consultant for the Sustainable Ocean Alliance, being the Portuguese language representative. Currently, she also plays the role of All Atlantic Ocean Youth Ambassador of Portugal. With the support of Ciência Viva, she is also ambassador of the Blue School Program and National Ocean Literacy Program. Welcome, Eugénia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Grace. And thank you everyone for this opportunity, all the team of Ocean's Voice. So I was asked to answer the questions. What are the challenges you face as youth on this topic? And what have you learned from these challenges? So I will answer you by my perspective as an ocean activist and also by my professional activity with Sustainable Ocean Alliance by being in contact with several young ocean leaders around the world, specifically on Portuguese-speaking countries. So a resume of what I felt and what also I listened around. So I think one of the biggest challenge that we as youth face, especially on the age of young professionals, is the lack of job opportunities, because we live in a really competitive world, even that I think we most need cooperation instead of competition itself. But because of that, there is a big challenge finding a job in the area of studies. So especially the first jobs, due to the lack of experience of years of professional experience itself. And I say this because the majority of my colleagues that study with me, I see that the big majority is working in other areas like commerce, sales, and not related exactly or nothing to this area. And I see it also as a reflection of our society, that we are prioritizing consumption and production instead of prioritizing the environmental and human protection and regeneration itself. So even myself, I've done several of different jobs not related to my field of study before being able to find and to have the right opportunities. So I think the big lesson that I take for this, I think is really important for all of us to really define what we really want to do with our vital energy during this lifetime. And after we are able to define it precisely, it can be much easier to present ourselves and our goals and our skills. And with that, also for search for more adequate opportunities, the ones that we really would be happy doing it. And keeping in mind also what nature teaches us, that the most well adapted is the one that survives longer. So that even we can dream without limits, and that's really good, but it's also good to keep our expectations low and just keep working every day in order to achieve our dreams, but not being discouraged by some facts of reality sometimes, and just keep following our heart. So another, okay, you listen to me? Yes. Okay, so another challenge that I also see, I'll challenge bar opportunity in different way. That is the big abundance of volunteering opportunities. So there are really great opportunities for us to develop our skills and to have experience in the fields that we have interest. And I think that they are especially important for the period that we are younger, that when we are still financially dependent of our parents, if we have that luck. And because and for example, I myself, I can stop being a volunteer even being already professionally active, because I like to follow, to practice what I love and what my passion, that is this protection for the ocean. And so I keep being involved in different projects, and the truth is that that the previous problem that I said, that is sometimes it's hard to have professional experience because we don't have still some years of that. The volunteering, and as younger that we started, is a good option in that ways, that can help us to build that experience and to also to understand what we really like and what we don't. And in my professional way, it was my majority of experiences voluntarily, and it was that brought me to this present path even today. So I definitely incentivize all the youth to get involved in national or international organizations at the youngest stage as possible. And as Anna says, for more and more now on, there is youngest people being involved, and that's an incredible sign of it. I've already been with some women with 10 years old that I took them the hat, and I sometimes stay silent because they were really powerful and active. And I thought exactly what you thought, Anna, like how I wasn't like that with 10 years old. I was probably not thinking that deeply or that straight. It is incredible to see that evolution. So another challenge that I also felt sometimes is that if youth is really listening and a part of the decision-making processes, or if sometimes it's just good for the picture or for branding. I'm saying this with my and collective experience that I also listen, because I think this is also related with the lack of comprehension of the political system. At least I felt that. So I think one solution is also to improve political education when we are younger, to understand it better. But for example, after my first collaboration some years ago, in a decision-making process, I remember feeling a lot of pressure in my shoulders, like I was the only Portuguese youth representative there. So I felt that everything, all the votes that I gave, or all the comments and suggestions, would be like a reflection of the Portuguese generation. So I was really anxious and nervous with all of that. And when it all finished, like all the process in the previous days and then in the European Parliament, I remember that in the end I felt a big disappointment because I felt lack of political presence, really listening everything, and I felt really uncertain about the results, like the concrete results that would get out of there. But I think this is also related with my and I think sometimes general lack of comprehension of the system itself. And through the last several years with more experience accumulated, I noticed also an increasing of will of integrating youth in all these processes. So from the governments, from some organizations like SUA that is bringing youth to be in the eye level conferences with decision-making people, and also having more campaigns. For example, the campaign that we also have now online against deep seabed mining, if you want to also read it and if you agree, and that can get to a table where it can influence a decision concretely about protecting our oceans. So I think it's being evolving. Even still, I think we still need more seats for youth on the table, that things that are really being decided. And I think as Ocean's Voice and everyone from SUA and everyone that has this passion and this intention can also contribute for that, because we united can also have a bigger impact. And the next challenge that I defined was the lack of financial abundance, and generally as youth, because we are in starting our careers and sometimes in precarious jobs and so on, depending on our situations. And for example, I felt that I was working not in jobs related to the area at the time, and I got the opportunity to attend international events. The first time was in 2017 with the World Oceans Day Youth Advisory Council in New York City, a parallel event, the Oceans, first United Nations Ocean Conference. And the second time was in 2018 with the competition from SOA, was how I met them and how I entered the Young Oceans Leader community to attend the World Ocean Summit in Mexico. So for the both of them, I contact organizations to ask for sponsorship and so on. And for the last one, with the tips from SOA, I also created a crowdfunding campaign. And I remember, like, for example, this last example to go to Mexico, because I was working, but in 3 weeks to pay a flight to transatlantic, it's kind of challenging. And so 1 week before, I already got some money from the crowdfunding campaign, but was not enough, was still missing 500 euros. And I was not sure if I was going or if I was not going. And in the same day, 1 week before, I got the answer of 3 sponsorships from one foundation, the Oceans Foundation, from one company, the Sea Life Porto, and from one NGO, the Sailors for the Sea Portugal, right on the same day, like morning, lunch, and afternoon. So it was confirmed that I was able to go. So I understood also by this experience that there is a cooperative network that really wants to empower youth to take ocean action, and sometimes we just need to find the right ways to communicate it. And that was 2 years ago, and from that time even to now, things have evolved too. And for example, last conference, our Oceans conference, SUA was able to cover the costs. So it's increasing this collective support also to bring youth to be present. And a big challenge also that I identify, especially also with my work, but not only also with international experience that I have, but especially that is that the economical difference from the countries can really have an impact on the involvement of youth on these high-level events in decision-making process and so on. And how much the country that we are born, at least more in the past, and I believe it's changing and for the best, could influence the participation, because the majority of these conferences and the decision-making processes, COPs and so on, a lot of them happened in the previous years, more in the North Hemisphere, in most developed countries and so on. That the coin itself in those countries are more than the double, like several times higher than other countries. So youth coming from those countries, if they didn't have the support to cover the expenses, it's really a huge impact in their economic process. And so as I said, like from these last 10 years, I saw also an increase of support and of investment on youth leadership through international organizations and also governments and collective associations too. So I think it also could be advantages. It's also already started for the last years to happen, to start organizing these high-level conferences in in the poorest economic countries, in order also to contribute to their economic development and also to equalize youth access to these events. Another challenge that I felt was also the dilemma that was the freedom to speak our thoughts versus the possibility of being closing doors on our job opportunities in the future or so on. Because as a young and activist ocean lover, I've always spoke what I thought, no matter the level of the context. But I also understood that there is a risk associated with it. And because until now we lived in a certain cultural behavior associated with these decision-making processes and politicians and so on, and which not always it's politically correct or polite to be 100% honest with the facts and reality. But I always chose to speak what I felt based on what I felt and the facts that I had sustaining my ideas, and understanding that there was a risky decision to do, but I understand that it's a balance that youth can analyze in terms of also the risk of being in the beginning of the career and being exposing an idea that is going completely against what is imposed. But I think that's also needed, and that's how we are important here. And to speak together, that's a big solution according to that. One of the others and most beautiful challenges that I felt was also to educate older generations, because it's hard to change habits. And after a lifetime of increasing consumption and production and seeing more pollution, suddenly a teenager shows up and says, oh, there is a lot of heavy metals in the big fishes, don't eat tuna, don't eat bacalhau, codfish, sorry, and eat local food, reduce, reuse, recycle, all these things. And in the beginning, it's a bit confused, there's a little like shock. For example, I don't know if you have that experience with our grandparents and so on. But and especially because it's exactly the opposite process that they live during their lifetimes, during decades and decades of years. But with a lot of love and patience and respect, it's possible to get amazing results, especially when we sit on the same circle, youth and older people, and everyone can share their life experience. There is a mutual learning, really beautiful, because the older people have years of different perspectives and of knowledge of the history and of human behavior and so on. And we can bring the disrupted thoughts of more protection and focus for what we really need now. So I think that together in cooperation is really a powerful team to rescue our ocean. And the last one, it's a challenge and a pleasure, but this one was to educate youth that was almost the same age as mine, but just some years younger. This challenge was more inside of me. They were high school students, and I remember thinking like, oh, maybe they won't listen me that properly because we are almost the same age, and maybe they just think, okay, I'm just another girl with different mindset. But exactly happened the opposite. What I was thinking about was an amazing experience, because we were born all on the same age, so we felt the same injustice, and we are growing with all these consequences of the actions of the previous generations with this damaged planet. And we understand that we really need to act to protect it and to regenerate it if we really want to have a pleasures and harmonious life with our planet too, and with ourselves. So I think it was a great experience, and this is the last challenge that I define. And thank you very much for this opportunity to share it with you.
Thank you very much, Eugénia. Now it's time to introduce Luciana Verástegui. Luciana is a Mexican environmental youth leader. Due to her activism, she was invited to the international event of the UNFCCC as an observer and as a youth delegate of Mexico at the COP25 in the POI 15 in Madrid. Currently, she's the contact point of the UN initiative YOUNGO, International Youth Oceans Voice Working Group, coordinating 150 plus youth from 38 plus countries representing 4 of the ocean's regions. This working group focuses on the consolidation of an international action group that supports ocean conservation initiatives to enable progress towards the training of the next decision makers. Welcome, Luciana. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. It is my pleasure to be here. I have heard their testimonies, and it's incredible how I'm really related with them. For example, the one of Eugénia, I also found sponsors, and it was truly amazing. And I'm also really impressed by the wonderful, interesting stories that I have heard. And I know that the next one will be too. And first and foremost, I would like to say I'm really lucky to be part of an amazing team with different personalities, different costumes, different backgrounds, but with one similar and main purpose. We all want to save our planet and to save our ocean. But I'm still learning from each one of them and also from myself. We are on the same journey together, holding by our hands and defending what must be defended, the ocean. I have had the privilege of getting to know each one of them, of the members of the team, and heard their testimonies. And the testimony that had impacted me the most was from a member of the team that says, "My dream came true when I saw Ocean's Voice, because not only I will get involved in my country, but in the world, and I will meet more people with the same purpose as me." That shocked me. He is from Gambia, and he's currently the sub-coordinator of his own region. He's from Africa, Gulf of Guinea. And being in a global network is always to get impressed by your colleagues and to have an open mindset that we must evolve together as a team. One time, our strategical and legal and technical advisor and first person that trusted me in the project, Hector Alafita, told me that nowadays, if we don't work as a collective, we won't be able to have a significant impact in the world. And we must respect and trust our friends and our colleagues, our advisors, and our team. And we must have to recognize the position and interest of those people that don't believe in us, and they are our greatest target. Having a global network means trusting in yourself and in the people that surround you, means putting yourself in the service of others, means love and also braveness, means you are not alone in the process, but you won't leave others alone too, and means that you have people that want to do something bigger than themselves. In this case, we all are here to raise our voice for the ocean and for the people that are not being heard. Don't forget, we are human beings and we are still learning. We are still understanding the diversity of the ocean and how the same human beings that depend on the ocean are destroying it. I have learned that when you want to defend something, you must need to be strategic and intelligent. First, you need to understand the problem and know how to solve it without affecting the people and convincing them to do the right thing, and that the best way to do something is by learning to coexist with our environment. I have learned that sustainability means empathy at the first step. Being part of this adventure has made me understand the value of the little things and remind me that it has a lot of value, the words that we say. The words are the most powerful and infinite tool we have. With our words, you can unite people or also separate them. And now I really try to be careful with the words that I use, and I only want the team feel comfortable and feel included. And the most important thing is to make the team feel we are a family. We all know that ocean is one, so we recognize that. Independently of the location, any impact in any specific place is an impact to the entire ocean. That's why Ocean's Voice is currently working in helping the local initiatives that are addressing environment problems in Mar Menor, a estuarine lagoon connected to the Mediterranean Sea in Spain, where agriculture and tourism and housing development activities impacting a very important area with environmental, social, and economic relevance in south of Spain. It is one of several examples of these kind of problems around the world about the consequence of human activities and in the ocean, and the problems of misaddressing in an international way, and of those problems and the initiatives of their solution. We chose Ocean Voice to focus on the Mar Menor, and due to extreme complexity, and needs to be recognized in all the world as an important problem because it is part of the ocean. Environmental issues and pollution do not know borders, and what happens in Mar Menor is impacting the rest of the world and will still happen in the international community stays without action. Mar Menor is an excellent example to highlight problems as a pollution caused by nutrients that come from unsustainable agricultural production close to its waters, as well as other important as plastic pollution. We are sure that we can help to the local and regional initiatives, addressing the problem in a problem around the world. So Mar Menor is a problem that concerns all of us, and think about the part of the problems that affect this area, that then affect the Mediterranean Sea, and then in the global level. So it's a scale. We are impacting in a local and in a global way. In other words, we must attend this problem and make this external problem ours. If we don't do it now, when? If it is not us, who would do it? These are important questions I want you to analyze. International collaboration is incredibly relevant in the exchange of knowledge we can apply in our countries and our people. We are all here to be heard and to share something that represents ourselves. We must use our voice as a connection with other people. Some of my responsibilities coordinating Ocean's Voice is to take consideration of each idea from everyone and to connect our network with other organizations. We are in the right moment to come together and to realize that there are so many people and organizations or networks working toward the same projects or having the same ideas, and we need to come together to create a greater impact for us, for our planet, and for our ocean. So thank you everyone for being here. It is my pleasure to meet all of your testimonies and to meet you and to also know other stories that will inspire me to be better than the day that was before. So thank you everyone, and I hope you like this webinar, our first webinar, and it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Luciana. Now it's time to introduce you to Patricia Furtado. After working for about 20 years in the arts, education, and sustainability interaction in the artistic and the academic environment, as well as in NGOs, private companies, and governmental bodies, in 2017, Patricia founded Acqua and placed the water and the ocean at the center of all her activities. She holds a master's degree in performing arts from the University of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and a bachelor's degree in drama, arts, and music studies from the School of Arts, Humanities, and Social Heritage of the University of Bologna, Italy. Since the year 2002, she runs a research on our marine memories and the memories of the water. And she's also a water and ocean reconnection experiences facilitator, which is the result of her practices with free diving and aquatic dances, meditations, and therapies. All right, Patricia, you have the floor.
Yes, I'll just put here the chronometer to check the hour. God, I'm so moved. It's so nice to see this open webinar done, all the work we have been doing. And it's so moving to listen to the youth talking about everything. That's why I decided to write a letter to you and to make a speech that is really directed to the youth involved in environmental causes related to the ocean. And it is mainly inspired by the Swedish activist Greta Thunberg, the Brazilian journalist Eliane Brun, and by a video I saw these days entitled Hope, produced by Pensée Sauvage. I don't know if you have seen it. And I wanted to tell you that you are the first generation that has been suffering since childhood the devastating consequences of climate emergencies. And that you're also the last generation that can do something to change this scenario. I know you're not responsible for the environmental catastrophes that are threatening life on our planet, caused or intensified by ambitious human activities that have triggered incalculable socioeconomic inequalities that are paradoxically the basis of our global economic system. I know that you are not to blame and it was not your fault. Some people say that you are the first generation who has no hope, because you cannot just wait for your dreams to come true. Now you must fight for them, and fight much more than we do, much more than we did before. And I'm not talking about having a nice job, a nice family, and a nice house. I'm talking about living in a habitable planet on which you can have a nice job, a nice house, and a nice family. And we know that we have very little time to make this spacecraft called planet Earth, or better, Blue Planet, continue to be a nice place to live. And we know it's time to work hard, to roll up our sleeves, because we don't have much time and because we have no choice. Life itself offers no security, and we live immersed in uncertainty, in constant transformation, in a liquid reality, as the Polish philosopher Zygmunt Bauman said. And so, like the water, you have to adapt, to be flexible, but not passive, not at all. And remember that the water knows how to get around obstacles, and the water has the strength to break through the hardest of the stones. So even with no hope, you can fight, because you will see, I'm sure you will see the result. You will see that you were able to move mountains. And in this way, transformation will take the place of hopelessness and fear, because I know that you can also feel afraid. And if you feel afraid, I invite you not to be paralyzed by fear. Move forward, even with fear. And after a few steps, it can turn into courage, into audacity. But remember, strategy and planning are also needed. And moving forward in fear and without hope doesn't mean jumping out of an abyss. You must learn how to fly in order to see landscapes from above as an eagle. With the planet overheating, you need to move, you need to fly, and fast. So without hope and fear, you are the first generation that is screaming to get adults out of their state of inertia, out of their comfort zone. You're giving them the opportunity to reflect on what is really important, on the true value of the word, the true meaning of the word value. Because on their deathbed, the amount of goods they have accumulated along their whole life will no longer be important. They will only give value to their affections and to the legacy, to their loved ones, and to the earth, to society in general. And in one of our social medias, an Ocean's Voice member, David Lozano, wrote, "Activism is the rent I pay for living in this planet." It touched me a lot and it still touches me. But don't believe in an adult that states that you cannot change the world. Yes, you can. I believe it. And please, never, never, ever lose your motivation. There's a statement from an American writer called Mark Twain that says, "They didn't know it was impossible, so they did it." And I know you're carrying a very heavy backpack in your shoulders, but I believe that you can still be very proud of your future achievements, because you can change the course of history. You will make this planet a better place to live. Your parents couldn't imagine that things would come to that point, but now you know how things are. So I say, please act. And not for me, not for the adults, but for yourself. And I know it's not easy. It will not be easy. Life is not easy. Life is not as featured in Instagram or Facebook posts, and you know that better than me. But do you prefer to spend your lifetime in front of computer screens or cell phones, hours and hours on social media, or do you prefer to fight for a healthy and colorful ocean where you can dive in the future with your children? In a little while, the quarantine will end and you will go out into the streets. You can all hold your hands and together you can start to build a new reality. Don't let yourself be infected by the inertia of some adults. You must move, guys. You must fly. Take charge of the situation. If our current leaders are the decision makers, show them that you are the change makers. Raise your voice, scream out loud, but mainly act. You know that we have only 10 years from now on to prevent irreversible damage from climate change. We must cut greenhouse gas emissions. The temperature of our planet cannot exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius. Only this way we can prevent coral reefs bleaching and death. We can prevent the melting of polar ice caps and the rise of sea level. Our ocean is also turning into a desert with the extinction of various species and ecosystems due to overfishing, plastic pollution, nutrients contamination, due to acidification and deoxygenation. And have you ever thought that before arriving in this aerial and terrestrial world, you have also lived for 9 months in the inner ocean of your mother's womb? If those waters were contaminated as the waters of that great aquarium called ocean, you would not be here now. Without the ocean, Mother Earth or Gaia or Pachamama cannot generate life and guarantee its continuity. The health of these waters is as important to life as the health of the amniotic fluid that allows a baby to develop in its mother's womb. No SDG can exist without a healthy ocean, because there is no life on this planet without a healthy ocean. That's why SDG 14, life below water, can be placed in the middle of all SDGs. So guys, your mission is absolutely important. You are the medicine man or the medicine woman of our blue planet. Gathered, your voices can echo, can reverberate, resonate, can vibrate and move all the structures around. And while far-right governments in many countries are building high walls and barriers to separate, while they are expelling their immigrants, you here are arriving together as a unique ocean's voice, tearing down geographical and cultural boundaries to ask for unity and peace, to ask for health. You can be spread in different corners of our planet, but you are fighting for the same ideal. You are together, and this is incredibly powerful. I will conclude now my speech remembering some quotes from Greta Thunberg at Davos, and in homage to the African present in our group, some words of Martin Luther King as well. Last year at the World Economic Forum, Greta said, "I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic. I want you to act as if our house is on fire, because it is. Yes, we are failing, but there is still time to turn everything around. We can still fix it." And Luther King in 1962, he said, "Even though we face difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. I have a dream." So guys, even maybe without hope, even in fear, I ask you, I beg you, please dream, but fight and act. And remember, it's not for me or for any adult. It's for you and for the generations to come. I'm already very proud of you, and your children will be very proud of you as well. And I'm sure you will be very proud of yourself. I believe in you. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Last but not least, let me introduce you to Brandon Levy. Brandon is a community builder, systems thinker, and mission-driven professional with experience working with leading sustainable enterprises. He is passionate about equipping youth leaders with frameworks for strategic thinking and conscious leadership, which he believes are the necessary skill sets to achieve maximum social impact and personal fulfillment. Outside of SOA, Brandon is a board member for the Young Professionals in Energy and is a mentor for Starting Block, a fellowship program that convenes, supports, and shapes the leaders our future needs. During his tenure at the California Clean Energy Fund, Brandon helped manage CalSeed, a funding and professional developmental program for innovators and entrepreneurs working to develop early-stage clean energy concepts. Brandon recently completed an MBA at the Presidio Graduate School, where he focused on market-based solutions to climate change. He also holds a BA in International Affairs from the George Washington University, where he graduated with special honors. Brandon enjoys spending his free time listening to and creating music, philosophizing with friends, traveling to beautiful locales, playing basketball, and engaging in contemplative practices. And with that, Brandon, you have the floor, and then Ian will continue asking questions to the panelists after.
Thank you, Grace, and thank you, everybody. I must mention first, before I say anything, how inspired I am by all the speakers today, and particularly Patricia. That was absolutely incredible. So I want us all to absorb her words, because they were not just wise, but they spoke to me on many levels, both intellectually and in my heart. So I want to honor the incredible speech that you just provided for us, and by no means will I compare myself and what I say to what you say, because that should be really something that we honor. So thank you for that. A bit about why I'm here today, and I think why we're all here today. At this point, we know we're in not just a challenging time, but a transitional moment in the arc of human history. We stand upon the precipice of evolving to a new form, to a new way of being, in which we can be one with each other, in which we can lead from a place of love instead of fear, in which we live with the earth rather than try to conquer it. However, while we are part of this transition, this great shift, this paradigm shift, right? There is inevitably going to be a lot of chaos. We're seeing it left and right. We're seeing it with the unfortunate political choices many of our countries have made. I live in the United States. I feel comfortable saying that I am very opposed to Donald Trump. I am opposed to Jair Bolsonaro. I'm opposed to any strong-armed authoritarian presence who is just holding on to that old paradigm, right? I think those that have reigned in power for decades now and have largely been responsible for the economic and environmental collapse that we find ourselves in now, I think those that have perpetuated that recognize that their time is up, and that there's a new generation coming who has totally different values, that's going to make totally different economic choices in the sense of how resources are allocated and how we treat one another, and how we run our institutions, and how we think about who we are, how we identify. So I mentioned we are at this point of evolution right now, where it's not just an incremental step that we can take collectively, but it's a quantum leap. And what this looks like for us can all be different. To put it in really practical, I don't know, practical, but simple terms, it's about taking a journey from your head to your heart. There's a concept in Chinese philosophies called Sing Sing, which means heart mind. There's many cultures, whether you look at ancient Chinese cultures, you look at the Lakota and Native American and indigenous traditions, you look at the Andean indigenous folks and other tribes and natives, in which they believe that the heart is where intelligence comes from, that we actually have a tremendous amount of neurons within our heart. We have incredible intelligence there. However, to speak from the heart, to be in the heart, for me growing up, that felt, as a man who wanted to be cool, that was never something I wanted to do. I was lucky to be given a tremendous amount of love from my mother. So I have a capacity to be loving, and I've grown into that as I've gotten older. But growing up as a teenage boy, and even as a college person, it was tough for me to embrace that part of me, right? Because I wanted to fit into a certain imprint. I wanted to be deemed as successful by society. And for me at the time, that meant making money. That meant womanizing. It could mean all different things that I was taught, which now I'm unlearning. And I think all of us, no matter what our journey is, we had certain experiences growing up in which we were taught something, whether it's modeled to us by our parents or by a politician or by a teacher or just from the culture that we find ourselves in. We were taught something that no longer feels resonant or true in our inner being. And the process of becoming an adult and a realized person is unlearning those things. So there's a quote that knowledge is what you learn, but wisdom is what you unlearn, right? There's an unlearning process that happens that's part of this evolution that we're all taking, this journey from the head to the heart, this courage that Patricia spoke so eloquently about, this courage to really be ourself and to be our truest nature, which in my opinion, or from the religious and spiritual and indigenous traditions that I adhere to, who we are fundamentally is love and awareness, right? We fundamentally are consciousness, and the best metaphor for consciousness is the ocean, in my opinion, right? All of us are waves or drops in the ocean, but we're not necessarily distinct forever as that wave. You know, we'll rise, there'll be a crest, there'll be a trough, and then we go back into the ocean. So a part of this evolution, this quantum leap for us individually, is understanding that we aren't just a drop in the water. We are the whole ocean. We are one ocean. We are one people. We are one voice. To steal the tagline of the host today. But I fundamentally agree that is true. That is where we are heading. And if you pay attention to what current politicians are doing, that are the more authoritarian people that are trying to maintain their power, what they're trying to do is keep us separated, right? They will do anything to foster racial divides, to degrade the environment, to cut us off from what gives us livelihood. But we're no victims to the system, right? What we can do is fundamentally always going to be in two dimensions, your inner dimension and your outer dimension. So inwardly, really doing work on yourself, using this time while most of us are still in quarantine, or we may not have the social lives we did 6 months ago, to really be with ourselves and just observe, right? There's this concept of creating or having part of your identity be the witness of yourself. So you may see yourself as Eugénia or Carla or Hector, right? And you may believe that you're just the actor in the movie. But what happens if you're both the actor and you're the person watching the film? So part of this dynamic of finding this witness to yourself can be really, really helpful. So you can identify more with that ocean rather than just the drop of water. And this gives you perspective. This allows you to see how you're a part of a bigger thing. And of course, by witnessing yourself, you're not necessarily going to be judging. It's more of just this loving awareness of who you are, what's happening. Exactly. I see someone wrote intuition. That's part of it as well. And balancing this compassionate, self-compassionate, loving awareness of what is, it's witnessing it all happening, with a drive to change things, right? To change things that don't feel right, don't sit right in your bones. There is a gentleman by the name of John Lewis, who is a famous politician, a good politician in the United States, who passed away recently. And he said, if you see something that's wrong or feels wrong, go out and change it. That's as simple as it is. And it's very clear that there's a lot wrong, not just with the ocean, but with the earth, with the patterns of rampant consumerism, of corruption, that's really destroying the planet actively. So there's a lot out there for us to change. But first and foremost has to be that first dimension of inwardly looking at yourself, witnessing what's there, learning to love what's there and accept what's there while still striving to change, but balancing this urge for productivity and transformation with a deep sense of self-compassion and acceptance. Because if you're pushing yourself away, if you're not accepting part of yourself, you're always going to be at war inside, and you're going to project that out to someone else. You're going to feel like a victim. You're not going to be as effective when you try to go to the external world and make change. So it can sound sentimental, it can sound new age, but it is fundamentally a truth in this life, that if you're not looking and transforming yourself, you cannot transform the world. So that's number one. Number two, as I've mentioned, is going out there and kicking some butt. And to invoke Martin Luther King once again, he has an amazing quote that I love, which is, "Power without love is reckless and abusive. And love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love, implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power, correcting everything that stands against love." So with that being said, as we continue to attune ourselves to our own inner truths and become more aware of what's happening in our world, the impetus is upon us to use our power to bring more love into this world. And how that shows up for you is going to be different from other people. Yes, we're all united by this common cause for the ocean. That is what's bringing us together here today. But this is bigger than the ocean. This is bigger than anything that we can even think about with our logical mind. And all you have to do is take it every day, take it day by day, be in your heart, support each other, become more aware of yourself, more loving and accepting of yourself, and take action when your intuition tells you it's time to do so. So thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be with you all today.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Brandon, for that inspiring speech. We will now go to the answer and question section of the webinar. I will ask one question per panelist. Thereafter, we'll have some questions from the viewers. I just remind each panelist that you have 3 minutes to answer each question. So we'll first start with Anna Hanhausen. So Anna, your question is, what are the main challenges you face as being an activist? and how do you overcome them?
Thank you, Ian, for the introduction and asking the question. So I think I can trace back this to a very specific example that has stayed with me throughout my career in activism or ocean action and different organizations that I've been a part of, is that I think sometimes people, older people, don't take the issues as seriously as we do sometimes. No? So they just think everything's gonna be okay, it's not that big of a deal, and they let it go. And I think it has to do with the issue making them uncomfortable and them preferring to look away than to address it and do something about it. So this specific example that I was talking about was when I first started working with Plastic Oceans Mexico. It was towards the end of 2017, and they came to my university to do a presentation, right? So I was in one of my classes. So I studied chemical engineering, right? So there's some of my teachers were really into environmental subjects, but some others were very like industry and production and, you know. So I asked one of my teachers like, hey, there's gonna be a presentation by Plastic Oceans Mexico at the time of class. Could the whole class go to the presentation, right? And maybe like that way they'll learn, blah, blah. And the teacher was like, yeah, but I don't think it'll make a difference. I really don't think enough people will care about the plastic issue for a difference to be made. And like he was just really stubborn in his words, like, well, you can go, but nothing's gonna change, right? So obviously at that exact point, I found it really unmotivating to hear someone older talk about the issue like this, and to be so like not having hope and also not willing to do something about it. So now I look back at that moment 3 years ago, and I realize things have changed. You know, in 30 of 32 states of Mexico, they're starting to apply legislation to plastics, to single-use plastics. In Europe, they're about to implement the circular economy protocol that bans and limits certain types of single-use plastics, right? So I think every time I face a challenge, I try to look back on that moment and think like, even if not enough people know about, if some people don't know about the issue or don't take it seriously enough, there's many of us who do, and there's many of us who are working thoroughly and dedicating all our days to finding these solutions, and this will truly make a difference. So I think one of the big challenges is really making other generations or other people realize that it's a really important issue, that it's something we all have to be devoted to, and that we all have to be conscious about in order to start changing. But I think this can truly be solved through action, and with them realizing that collective action truly makes a difference. Sometimes maybe them not using a plastic bottle or not using a plastic bag or something makes them feel like they're not really doing a difference. But once you count the sum of everyone who's acting, it truly makes a difference. And I think that's what really helps us get through most of the challenges we face. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Anna, for your response. We'll now continue with Eugénia. So Eugénia, your question is, how do you establish an effective dialogue with decision makers to convince them that we must protect our oceans? Reminder, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Ian. So at first, I already understood that it is really important to choose the right moment and method to approach the decision makers. But the first step of them all is to make our homework. So to have studied the topic in question properly, like the last release of reports, last conference that was spoken about it, the last international and national laws, and to have inside us the scientific feedback, the citizens' perspective, and also a comprehension for the challenges of the industry too. So then if your perspective isn't aligned with the current political decision, present your idea with all the arguments that sustain it and never feel afraid to do it. Even besides the big differences of positions that you might feel, never feel afraid to expose what you think. And with all the arguments that sustain it. And be always prepared also to receive no's and also to be criticized about your thoughts. And the best preparation about that, for that, is to anticipate those critics and to think about the answers yourself. That's also a self-constructive way. Even when, for example, when myself achieve a conclusion, I think it's great to self-question it and see it from another perspectives, because a lot of times, even what I thought that I was correct thinking, then I find out that there is another way and this was not that certain. So it's also a good process for ourselves, and also for these moments that we are having an argument with decision making and people that can influence the laws and the path of our oceans protection. It's good that we have all those perspectives in our mind. And two effective factors that I think that are really important to make this dialogue with them is also to be united with a bigger group of youth, like as in Ocean's Voice, or all these other movements with Sustainable Ocean Alliance and so on, and also to have an organization that is recognized internationally on supporting our thoughts. SUA is doing that, as I said, on deep sea mining, but we have a lot of others, like from this case, we have United Nations supporting also our perspective, and that gives a lot of power to when we are showing our thoughts. So basically, this is what I wanted to share. And thank you, everyone.
Okay, well, thank you, Eugénia, for your insight and your response. We'll now go to Luciana. So Luciana, what was your main motivation to enter YOUNGO, and how do you coordinate the Ocean Working Group actions?
Thank you, Jan, for your question. And thank you, everyone. You inspired me so much. I mean, that is my motivation. Since I was little, I have a lovely parents that always taught me that I can do my possibilities to a possibility and do it extraordinary. And that has always been my motivation. And also that every day I'm learning from myself, I'm learning from a other person, and I have the opportunity to be a better one. So, and also to hear that people get inspired of myself, I really, what motivates me a lot is to be a role model and to be really a good role model for the people that is looking at me, and also to try to be the best that I can. It's always they work, and I know sometimes it's hard, and sometimes you feel that you don't have no motivation, but I really, really trust in myself and trust in the people I work with. And I know that every person has something special to share with other people. And that is my purpose of life, to really meet and to really learn of that special that other people has and what I have, and to share it to everyone. And I think what really motivates me and go beyond what is YOUNGO or what is the name of anything, I think specifically what motivates me is the people that is in there and the ocean too. So I'm still learning to be a human. And also I want this world for the people for my family and for the next generation, a better place. So I think I will finish with that.
Oh, okay, Luciana, thanks for the response. We'll now go to Patricia. So Patricia, why after so many years have you decided to dedicate your life to connect young people to the ocean? Reminder, 3 minutes.
I can say that water was the first word I said in my life, and I grew up in Rio, so I had always established a very intimate relation with the ocean, and the ocean gave me too much, really. For me in the beginning, it was just like a hobby, just something like go to the beach, to dive, to free dive, to dance in the water. And I couldn't think at that point that to work for the ocean would become a mission. But some years ago, I was like wondering what could be the real direction of my life. I was working with so many different projects and environments. And then I really felt that I had to give back to the ocean, to the water, what the ocean and the waters had always given to me. And I used to say that each drop of water in land comes from the ocean and will go back there. So the ocean is inside, it's everywhere. And I would like maybe to recall Brandon's speech here, because he talked about love, and this is really the essence of everything. It's like I feel this connection to the ocean, and I believe that to work for the ocean, but not only working technically to save the ocean because it's needed, but you must feel connected, and it has to do with love, with recognition, with this sensation that you come from there. It's a very strong connection. It has to do with even this moment that we were inside our mother's womb. It is the first relation to the ocean we had, since even the chemical quality of our blood is very similar to the ocean. And that's why I also say that even when you talk to adults, you want to work youth and adults, how you can establish this dialogue, I think that we must also connect to the child that lives inside each adult. This adult was a child, and this child is still within. It's a child that maybe was not loved, that maybe has deep wounds. So maybe they are cruel, maybe they're doing bad things because of lack of love. So everything is connected to me. And for me to connect people to the water, to connect people to the ocean, it has to do with a deep connection that it's something very, very, it's in the origins, and it has to do with love. I think that when we feel it and we are able to connect, looking at someone's eyes and being empathetic and try not to judge, not to point out the fingers to someone, this is the way that a connection is established, and we can do something really for the ocean. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm just giving back, because what the ocean gave me, it was like, it's the great mother for me. I know the earth is the great mother, but the ocean for me, it's something really big. So I just want to share. It's like when you have something that you love, that you like, and you want to share with your friends. I like to share that, to reconnect people to the ocean, to reconnect people to themselves, to reconnect people to love, that it's the essence of life. So that's it.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Patricia. Thanks for the inspiring words and the positive energy that you give us. Okay, so finally, but not least, Brandon. So Brandon, your question is, did your relation with the ocean change after working with the youth in SOA? Which are the most important things in the ocean that have taught you so far?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I didn't work in the ocean before starting at SOA a few years ago. I've spent most of my career in clean energy and looking at climate change from different perspectives, from an impact investing perspective, from an early stage innovation standpoint. But I never really thought that the ocean was as important as it is in our fight against climate change. And that was what was enlightening for me, in the sense that the ocean is our biggest carbon sink, that it is providing over 50% of the oxygen we breathe, that mangroves are actually way better at sequestering carbon than the rainforest is, right? So these are not things taught. I studied in environmentalism, and on a master's level, I was never taught these facts around the ocean. So yeah, it's been a big learning experience for me to just see how the ocean is a leverage point for us to fight climate change. And someone earlier very eloquently put that the ocean is the silent victim, the voiceless actor, in which is like a mirror for all of our actions, of all of our overconsumptive ways. So there's something there too about there's deep significance around there. And yeah, in terms of your part of the question around working with youth from around the world, it's been absolutely inspiring. I've had the privilege of being a host to a few different big events that we've done in Bali and Indonesia, as well as in Oslo, Norway, over the last 2 years, and now engaging with people virtually. And what really strikes me is the universality of this cause. Like we can be speaking to people from all over the world. The network we have currently at SOA as young leaders in over 150 countries, and there's an element that's uniting all of us, and I think Patricia really spoke to it. It's this common bond that we're here on the planet for a reason, and what's bringing us together right now is our common love for the ocean and a deep desire to preserve it for the future.
Thank you, Brandon, for your participation. We are very grateful for all this incredible participation and for those inspiring words. Now we will have 10 minutes for question and answers. So if you want to make any question, please write it in the chat and let us know if it's directed specifically to a panelist. We will only have 10 minutes for this.
If we don't have any questions, maybe we can proceed. So this is the last time we say, or we ask you, or if you want to make any questions about anything, you can do it. If not, let us know. Oh, it's our pleasure too, Caroline. Okay, if not, I will proceed with the closing. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Luis Carlos, and all the directive and advisory board. And foremost, thank you, Anna, Eugénia, Patricia, and Brandon, for giving us this opportunity to hear your testimonies. You are such an inspiration for all of us. We are so privileged to have the honor of meeting incredible human beings. And being this our first Ocean Voice webinar, we're so excited to send you this weekend a certificate of appreciation. Remember, you need to raise your voice, not the level of the sea, and we must raise it together because we are one planet, one ocean, and one voice. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So
Let's do a photo of all the group, Lou.
Yes, I agree. I always forget about it. Liz, can you please help us with the picture?
Well, I'm actually in the phone, so I can, okay.
Okay, so if everyone turn on their camera, that would be awesome. Don't be afraid, just turn it on. That would be great. Okay, so we're having the picture. Okay, let's wait a second. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, smile. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you everyone for being here. You are such an amazing people. This has been so inspiring and wonderful. And really, you made me cry. It's not a joke. You made me cry. And thank you everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.